Hi, welcome to How to Have a Wedding as Individual as You Are, the podcast. Based on my book of the same name, this podcast is here to help you have the wedding of your dreams and not the wedding that other people are putting pressure on you to have. I'm Ross, I'm a wedding photographer passionate about embracing diversity and equality in the wedding industry, and each week I'm going to be talking to different experts to help you plan the wedding of your dreams. So regardless of who you're marrying, where you're marrying and how old you're going to be when you get married, sit back, relax and find out how to have a wedding as individual as you are. Hello, welcome to our first ever episode of How to Have a Wedding as Individual as You Are. Now, as you might have heard in the little intro, this is a wedding podcast all about diversity and inclusivity, and we're here to help you celebrate who you are as you are on the biggest day of your life. So each week I'm going to be talking to a different supplier to offer some insight and advice on planning the perfect wedding, a wedding that's really true to you. So I'm here with my first guest, the fabulous Fred Foster. So we've just celebrated the first episode with a little slice of a homemade chocolate brownie. So we're nice and chilled, we're ready to go. So first things first, Fred, welcome to the podcast. Introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Thank you, Ross. I'm very excited to be here, if I'm honest. This is the first time I've done anything like this. So hello, people listening. I'm Fred Foster and I run Yours Occasionally. I am an award-winning bespoke wedding stationer. So that means I make everything from your save the date cards, and I take you all the way to the end to the thank you cards where people sometimes forget to send those. So that's what I'm going to be covering a lot of today.
Yeah, absolutely. And at the end of the episode, we'll share your social media and your website address so people can look at your wonderful designs, and they really are awesome. So do check them out. But listen in for the next half an hour or so first and get lots of tips and advice. So today's discussion is going to center on pinpointing your priorities. As it's the first episode, the best thing to do is start from the very beginning. You've just got engaged, you're going to have a wonderful wedding. Where do you start? What do you do? So today we're going to help you set priorities as a couple and explain the importance of why you need to set some priorities and identify what your shared values are. We're going to help you maintain a strong sense of self and ensure your wedding aligns with your values. Sounds nice and deep, but it's not as intense as it sounds. And we're going to help you keep a sense of perspective and not lose sight of what is and isn't important to you. So first of all, we're going to talk to Fred a little bit more about designing her stationery and how she does what she does. So the first thing I was going to ask you, Fred, is that your designs range from save the date cards and invitations right through to thank you cards, all the way through the journey of the wedding. Does that give you a sense of duty to help couples transition to each stage of the planning process?
It does, definitely. And especially if I start with them from the beginning, from a save the date card or even from the invitation. Normally by then, a lot of couples have got their venue sorted, outfits, photographer, and I sometimes come far down the list, but then I'll also find that some of them come to me before they've even got a venue. So it's making them understand where the starting point is, because obviously I can't make invitations if they don't know where the wedding is or when the wedding is.
Yes.
So it's being able to give them advice like that about, perhaps let's start at the beginning with a venue. Let's start looking at other things that get booked up quickly, because jobs like yours as a photographer, obviously you've got to be present on the day.
Absolutely.
For me as a stationer, I can do 6 weddings for one date because I've not got to be on site to do that.
Very true.
So I can look at, making sure they prioritise, because 9 times out of 10, I can do the date.
Yes.
So that's something to look at. And I like to take them through the journey because of the consistency as well. It's that continuity of the same person, giving you the same sort of advice all the way through. And I try and do that. I'm not telling them who they should pick as their vendors. What I'm doing is trying to make sure that they're not stressing about who to find and where to find people. So if I can advise, I will.
Yeah, and I think that's a good wedding supplier should prioritise reducing stress for couples.
Definitely.
Because it is really stressful. It's an exciting process, but it's a stressful process.
It's supposed to be fun. I loved it. It was brilliant. And I want couples to have the same experience that I had.
Yeah.
And if they're not having that much fun, something's not right somewhere.
Yes.
And it's getting to the root of that as well. Why is it not enjoyable?
Yeah, and how do you balance providing lots of useful information with not overwhelming couples? Because a lot of couples come to me and they're just overwhelmed with the conflicting information and advice. How do you sort of balance what you say and what you don't say at certain times of the
gauging.
process?
It is gauging your couple from the beginning. I have a consultation. I offer a bespoke consultation because unless I can sit down and talk to the couple, I don't know what it is that they want. So we sit down and I get a sense of, how they are as a couple, what they want for a wedding. And you can tell some sit there and they're rabbit caught in headlights and they don't know where to start. So I ease them in gently.
Yeah.
Have you looked at a venue and have you tried doing this? Or you'll get ones that are so super organised that you almost have to make them take a step back and go, right, okay, you're running, faster than you can walk, and you just need to sit back and think, right, we've got plenty of time, let's slow down, let's look at, do we really need these gazillion things?
Need or want, yeah,
exactly.
Absolutely.
Are they important? Where can you save some money? Where can you pull back to your budget? I talk to them about a budget. It's a very personal thing, but if they haven't set a budget, it can go all
and I think that's
kinds
true.
of ways.
And even if you've got a massive budget, you still don't want to get carried away spending money on things that don't resonate with you. So I think it can be just as difficult with a lot of money to play with as it can be with a small amount of money. So it's about priorities, and we'll move on to that in a second. Do you see quite a difference in a couple's stress levels or confidence levels as you progress from the consultation stage?
I do.
Close till they get to their wedding.
Some, obviously all couples are different again. Some will be so relaxed that you kind of worry that you've not heard about them and heard from them for a while, and you chase and they're like, no, everything's fine. Or I will get couples who will message me every day, and that's fine. And it isn't always about stationery. It will be about other things. But the nice thing is that they feel comfortable enough to come to me for that advice, because we've sat down and we've had this talk before in the consultation, and I think it just continues from that. So of course everybody's different, so it's just gauging where people are. But I find it's younger brides are quite confident, and the grooms will come along as well, and they'll have a real sense of what they want. They really know what they're, this is exactly what we want.
Yes.
And then I find if I've got older couples or couples that are getting married again, in a way they're almost apologetic, which I find a bit sad, because it's like, oh, we've already done this before, but we want to do this. It's like,
still just
it's
exciting.
Exactly.
It's
your wedding day.
It's a
really
celebration.
Important.
Yes.
And I'm not going to treat you any differently to somebody who's only been married once.
That's very true.
I want them to celebrate.
Yes.
Being together.
And I find the same thing, actually, that whether it's younger couples or couples that look around a wedding fair or look online for inspiration, and they can identify with what they see, whereas older couples, same-sex couples, maybe even couples from different religious groups, where they don't identify with that mainstream image of what a wedding looks like,
finding their place and thinking they have to conform to a norm, and there's no such thing as a norm when it comes to weddings.
And that's what inspired the book, really, is all those people that don't know exactly what they want and how a wedding can fit with what's important to them. So let's move on to that a little bit. And the first sort of things you should do when you know you're getting married, you've just had that ring on your finger and you're really excited. A lot of people rush to look online, they tell all their friends, they go and visit venues, they go to wedding fairs without really sitting and thinking about what's important to them. So one thing I always say is just take some time to think about what's important to you as a couple, as individuals, not in terms of a wedding, but in terms of life. So is family everything to you? Are you a career person? Are you into your health and well-being? You know, even if you think, well, how does that relate to a wedding? Just jot down some things that are really important to you, and discuss it and come up with, you know, 2 or 3 of the key things that mean the most to you. And that can really help shape your priorities when it comes to booking your wedding, I feel.
Yeah, definitely.
I think there's a lot of advice I've seen other blog posts where it says, what should you book first? But I think it's very dependent on what's important to you. If the time of year is important to you and you want a summer wedding because all the kids from the family are going to be free, and people have got time to travel over or take time off work, then you've got to prioritize the date and find venues that are available on that date. Whereas if, you know, photography is really important to you and you want a venue that lends itself to photography and you're not so adamant that it has to be a certain time of year, then go and find the perfect venue first and see when they've got availability. So I don't think there's a one size fits all.
No, not at all.
In terms of
Definitely
do this,
not.
then this, then this. And
No.
like you say, there are suppliers that book up really soon. So your photographer, obviously, you know, 18 months, 2 years ahead, are sometimes fully booked up. And like you say, you can do 6 gigs for the same day.
Exactly.
So it does vary. But I don't think you should enter wedding planning with a sense of panic or a sense of we must do this and then do this and then do this.
No, there's no... I know a lot of people offer checklists, but that's not necessarily the route that you need to go down. Yes, having somewhere to get married is really important, but like you say, it depends on the time of year in terms of what venue is going to be best suited to you, the amount of guests that you want. Like you're saying, that if it's the summer and you've got children going, is it going to be somewhere that's child friendly? It's making sure you might want a beautiful castle, but if it's no children or it's not suitable for children and they could fall off the ramparts. Do you know what I mean? It's looking at
if family's
like
important
that.
and you've got a lot of older members of the family, you've got to look at, is it accessible?
Do you know
is
what?
it
That was
too
one of the
far
things.
to travel?
Yeah, that was one of the things when I got married was family, and I had an elderly aunt and uncle coming. And for me, it was making sure it was accessible for a wheelchair. That was really important because it was really important for me to have them at my wedding.
Yes.
So that was one of the things high up on our list, was accessibility, and also making sure they had a parking space at the church. Things like that, we actually put them first before us because it was actually really important for us to have them there.
Exactly.
And for them not to come just because they couldn't get up a set of stairs or park somewhere would be heartbreaking.
Yes.
So it is really looking at maybe drilling down to that level.
It is. And I always say to write them down. I mean, I do this with my business. I've got 3 values that I jot down. I've got them on a business card. And the 3 things that are most important to me are family, equality and diversity, and peace of mind. And sometimes I'm asked to do a job that might be really good money, or there's an opportunity that comes up and I'm not sure, and I'll look to see if they meet those criteria, those values, because you know, it could be lots of money, but if it's going to stress me out, that's my peace of mind gone. If it's going to compromise, you know, time with my family, whereas, you know, it takes me away from holiday period, or, you know, another weekend away from my partner, then I have to think again. And you're going to be bombarded when you're planning a wedding with ideas and inspiration, and you're going to meet some pushy suppliers, and it's going to be confusing. So, you know, if you are being sort of pushed into a corner by a supplier, you know, and you don't know what's important to you, you're going to end up booking a service or spending money on something that actually,
you don't want.
Later down
and
the line
out of
you'll
convenience,
regret.
because it seems convenient to do it.
Yes.
You should never be booking anything out of convenience. It has to be because you want it, because it means something to you on the day. For example, we didn't have centerpieces on our table. And to be honest, if we had, I don't think I'd have remembered what they were. Because I've been to half a dozen weddings where, and I don't mean it disrespectfully, but I can't remember what was on the centre of the table because that wasn't important.
No.
What was important was who was sat opposite me, so that we could chat to each other, or that I could see them at the top table doing their speech.
Yeah. It's the same with the photos. Nobody orders a massive canvas of like their centerpiece and they are wonderful, and there's some fabulous suppliers out there who design them, and I don't mean any disrespect, but it's the moments, it's those little moments that you capture as a photographer that people remember, even if you not say the wrong name, it's not Ross and Rachel on Friends, but if you struggle, with your vows and you giggle, that's what you remember. That's what people remember.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Those little moments. It's not, you don't say, how was so-and-so's wedding? Oh, lovely. You should have seen their chair covers. If that's what you're talking about, you kind of think, it's not a good sign, really.
No, it's not. It was where was the laughter? Where was the love? That whole feeling of being there for them and being so happy.
Yeah, absolutely.
I cry at every wedding I go to. It's ridiculous, but I'm so happy for these people that are, declaring their love for one another. And to me, that's the centre of it all. You're standing up, declaring your love in front of all these people. And some advice that I always give my couples when you see them spiralling out of control and it's like, Fred, we've got to organise this. And I say, right, the only thing that matters is the vows you exchange at the altar. Everything else is a bonus. And that includes what I do.
Yes.
It's a bonus. What because you could just go and do that yourselves and say those vows and you'd be married.
Absolutely.
So and everything else
that's
comes,
what I wrote in the book.
Yes.
A wedding with 500 guests and 10 bridesmaids and 20 speeches is no more legitimate and legal than just two people and witnesses in the middle of Gretna Green.
Exactly.
It's the same vows that you're making.
It's what you say to each other. That's what it boils down to.
It's lovely to have the big weddings, and we wouldn't be in business if people didn't do all those wonderful things. So we're slightly hypocritical, but it's still having those key beliefs and vows at the centre of everything. And that is what it all
boils back down to. It's like when you do go off on a tangent thinking you need all of this, at the end of the day, why are you getting married and what do those words mean to you? And that's your starting point.
Yes.
What are you doing it for? Why are you getting married?
And that's really good to move on to the next point about perspective. So I've talking in the book about planning beyond the wedding, because I think people book a wedding date and then all they talk about is that wedding date, and their relationships becomes about the wedding. And so many people, I go and deliver the photos, 3 or 4 weeks later, and they're like, we don't know what to do. We're a bit deflated. And there's always going to be an anticlimax, but you're spending the rest of your life together. It's the start of the adventure. It's not the end of like a 6-month planning project.
No, not at all. It's what it was all about.
It's the very beginning. Yeah, so I always say write down some goals of what you want to do in your first year of marriage and beyond. Do you want to travel?
Yes, that was really good advice, I thought. Definitely.
Because, if you don't write them down, it's like anything, you don't do it. No. So write them down. I say stick them on your fridge. What do you want to do? Do you want to go for more walks? Do you want to go to the cinema more? Do you want to have a date night once a week? Do you want friends round more often? Whatever it is, write it down, because that's what your life is going to be. That's what you're looking forward to, not just that one day. And I think by doing that, it gives you a reference point when you're, losing sleep over, what wedding favours to buy or what colour bow tie to wear on the day, or who to sit next to who.
The seating plan, don't get me started on that.
But it gives you that perspective. You go, okay, in the big scheme of things, this is important, but it's not the most important
it's
thing.
Not the be all and end all.
One day, So I think look beyond the wedding is really key, and it's that difference between a lifelong marriage and a wedding day. And I think so often they get pushed together in the same thing, and it becomes all consuming, and people lose all sense of who they are and what their relationship is about. So it's I think perspective is key.
Yeah, I've seen it happen with couples, and I've had couples that are not looking forward to their wedding day because it's just got too much for them, and that makes me so sad.
Yeah, or it's a checklist. We've done this, then we've got to do that, and then we've done that, and now we can breathe.
You just have to bring them back to this point. What are you doing it for?
Yes.
And again, it's just those vows. That's what really, really matters. And I can't really stress that enough, because I say it to every couple. I really do. And really it does give them this sense of perspective. They need that. They need, you get to a point where you can't see the wood from the trees because it does consume you, and you do have to take that step back, or for somebody else to just tap you on the shoulder and say, hang on a minute, you know, just calm down, it's fine.
Yeah.
Just let's look at the important things.
Definitely. And I think, you know, even if you're on a budget, that can change if you meet the right supplier. So, you know, you might really love someone's photography and think, actually, that's really important. We're going to spend a bit more on that and take a bit of our budget away from something that actually isn't that important to us. I think sometimes when you speak in terms of budgeting, you think in terms of cutting costs. So you kind of, well, we'll spend a certain amount on that and a certain amount on that and a certain amount on that. So you have everything you want, but at a reduced price. And weddings can be all or nothing almost. So you could spend all your money on the photography if you wanted, or all your money on the venue and not worry about the photos. I think people think they've got to have everything. And so they sort of pick and choose maybe suppliers that are less than ideal so they can have everything, because they feel they have to have everything.
Yeah, exactly.
And
you don't need everything.
You know, you can have a wonderful venue, an amazing photographer, and just have sandwiches for lunch if you want. You know, there's no rules. And I think that's really key. There are no rules.
I'm sure there's plenty of people who will be quite happy with that as well. Because that whole sit-down meal thing, it can be quite daunting to some people.
Yeah.
Or they feel nauseous because they've got to give their speech. So the thought of having to sit down and eat and then stand up and do a speech is, terrifying to people. So, it is. It's looking at things like that. Yeah. Definitely.
And I think once you've got your values, it's easier to find suppliers who have the same values, because I think you have to look, and I'll talk in another episode about finding suppliers and what to look for, but I think it's very hard to choose suppliers when you don't know what's important to you, because you have to look beyond just what they do. There's lots of people that take nice photos, there's lots of people that do nice flowers. You're going to be working with these people, so you have to know yourself and what's important to you before you can find other people that you're gonna get on with and resonate.
Absolutely,
and I think when you have identified your values and you know which aspects of a wedding you want, whether it's I want beautiful flowers everywhere, then go to that supplier quite early on, because their advice on the rest of the wedding is going to tie in with what's important to them. So for me, if somebody, you know, they want amazing photographs and they come to me quite early and they haven't planned other things, if photography is their priority, brilliant, music to my ears. But also I can tell them how to do certain things or plan certain things to help me get the best photos. So in terms of how your tables are set up, has a huge impact on the photographs of your speeches. Because if everyone's just stood at the table they're at, it's very hard for me to get around and get a clear shot. Whereas if you're at the head of the table, you know, you can get some lovely shots because it's logistically it's easier. You know, for other people, that's not so important. But if you've come to me saying, we want great photos, this is what we want to prioritize, you also have to look at timings. You're going to have to spend time away from your guests to get these kind of shots. Are you happy spending an hour, 90 minutes away from your parents and your nieces and nephews to get these fantastically stunning shots? Or actually, second thoughts, you'd rather just have a few quick snaps and spend all the time with your family. In that case, I'm not the right photographer for you either. So you have to have a real sense of self and talk as a couple beforehand. And I think you have to iron out or identify some discrepancies between you both as to what is important, because there are going to be differences. You know, my partner will prioritise the food. No disrespect to him, but it'd be all about the food. Whereas obviously me, it'd be about the photos and the venue. So it's tying all those things together. So if there are going to be any crosswords, they're not going to be in the middle of a wedding fair or, you know, at a consultation, which is highly embarrassing. It does happen. And you have those awkward moments where you're like, okay, do you need 5 minutes to yourself? Them get on with it. Yeah, come back to me when you've sort of kissed and made up. So I think we've covered quite a lot of ground there already. Is there any other advice you would give to couples who, they've just put a ring on it, they're about to get married? What would you say to them?
Where do you start? I mean, I think we definitely covered a lot of it, but for me, really important is have fun whilst you're doing it. My husband and I, he was actually key in our wedding planning, to the point where I had to put my hand up and say, can I help with anything? Because he just ran with it. He was brilliant. But I loved the fact it was a partnership.
That's so true, actually, because the weddings I've done this year, the ones where the couples have been the least stressed and it's been the most plain sailing, for want of a better phrase, are the ones where the couples planned it together.
We did everything together. We planned everything together. We didn't book a single supplier without the other person's approval, if you like, apart from the dress.
Yes.
And I think maybe the flowers, because that was something that, again, he said, well, I'm not carrying them. You pick what you want. But everything else was a joint decision. Venue hunting was really fun, really funny. And I just remember laughing through the planning. And I think
that's
important. What helped us not get through it, because it's not I've got to get through this wedding plan, because it is
But
fun.
Again, it's that perspective, isn't it?
Exactly. And I think we kind of kept each other grounded on that fact about, not going off on a tangent and do we need all of this? Do we need all of that? We kind of really were on the same page.
Yeah.
We knew what type of wedding we wanted. Family was really important to us. So that's what we made a priority. We made sure that our family were looked after. And we almost, but not quite, made ourselves secondary in it, because we wanted to make sure everybody else had a great time. But we did. It was the best day of my life, hands down. I can't dispute that. It was fantastic. But what I love, nearly 9 years on, is people still say what a brilliant day they had. And that means a lot to me, because
that was your priority.
That was our priority. We wanted
because
people had travelled. Most of our guests had travelled quite a way to come to the wedding, so we didn't want them, to turn up and have not a terrible time, but just not feel comfortable, not enjoy themselves. But I think the best thing that we could have done, and again, this is another piece of advice I give out to couples, on the day when you're there in the thick of it, just a couple of times throughout the day, just take each other's hands, walk to the back of the room or the venue. Just sit back and watch people enjoying your day. It's brilliant, because you're stuck in the middle of it. So you don't see people doing that. But and especially at night when everyone's dancing, if anybody comes over, just say, look, we'll be with you in 5 minutes. But it gives you a chance to talk to each other, because you actually don't talk to each other a lot on the day. So it gives you a chance to talk to each other. But watching other people enjoy your day is just brilliant. So
we just had posts through the door. These things happen.
Love it.
We keep it nice and authentic here. We're
keeping
not
it real.
Yeah, we're just one take wonders. We are. So sometimes we get disturbances like posts through the letterbox. Carry on, Fred. As you were.
That's a definite piece of advice I give to people, and
really good piece of advice.
I do pass it on, and I've had people say thank you for reminding us to do that, because we probably wouldn't have spoken to each other.
And you don't have to talk to every guest. Guests don't expect you to speak to them for a good 10 minutes. People panic.
Really hard to do that.
It's really hard. I mean, I'm not married yet, so slightly hypocritical I'm doing this podcast. But even when I had my book launch, there was so much pressure. Like, I felt I had to speak to everyone, and I didn't. And you feel awful. But people don't expect it.
No, actually. Of course not. They're there to support you.
They just want to see you happy.
Exactly. And it's there, and that's what your guests are there for. They're there to support you.
If you want guests.
Well, this is true. You might not want guests.
We're trying not to make any assumptions on this podcast.
But it's support. That's what it's about.
So I think as well, it's important when you're planning, if a mainstream wedding isn't what you're after, or if you're having a same-sex wedding or a second or third wedding or a mixed religion wedding, whatever it is, although at first glance, if you look at the wedding magazines or wedding media, it looks like you're not catered to, there are people out there. There's more and more inclusive suppliers. So it might seem a struggle at first, but don't be tempted to conform to other people's ideals just because you can't see evidence of the wedding that you want. Stick to what you want, and you will find suppliers that will help you to have that wedding.
Absolutely, they'll help you create that.
Yeah,
Definitely.
and be honest.
Yes.
Be honest about who you're marrying, what's important to you right from the outset, and that will sort the wheat from the chaff. You will automatically be drawn to suppliers with your values. You get that you want to be an individual. You get that you want the seating differently, or you're walking down the aisle together, or you don't want a first dance, or you don't want to cut the cake, or you just want 3 guests. So be totally open and honest and proud of who you're marrying, and don't let mainstream media dictate your wedding. Dictate your wedding.
Not. Exactly.
Not in a rude way, not in a bride or groomzilla way, but dictate your wedding to your suppliers. You're in control. So, have respect for them, work with them, but they're not doing you a favour.
Don't be afraid to say no.
Exactly.
Don't go along with what they say because you think you should.
Yes.
Don't be afraid to say, no, this is not what we want.
Yeah. And I say in the book, if it's legal and practical and it's not going to do anyone any harm, do it.
Skydive wedding.
Yeah, whatever you want to do. So cool. So let's do a little summary of some of the tips that we have shared. There's been quite a few. So identify what your values are as a couple, in terms of life in general, in terms of your relationship, not just in terms of the wedding that you are planning. So is family important to you? Is your career important to you? Your career might dictate when you can get married, who you invite, how everyone has to behave at your wedding if your boss is coming, all those little things. So think in terms of your lifestyle and what's important to you first and foremost before you do anything else. Get a sense of perspective and realize that a wedding and your marriage are 2 separate entities. And remember that you're spending the rest of your life with somebody who loves you just the way you are. That's incredible in itself.
Of course it is.
Like Fred said, everything else is a bonus.
It is.
So just remember that. Get some perspective. So plan things beyond the wedding and have days or weeks where nothing is about the wedding. Don't make the whole 12 months, 6 months all about the wedding. Have date nights. Have days where you watch box sets. Have days where you don't look at your wedding inbox, and just keep a sense of non-wedding-y.
Absolutely, just be a real couple. Remember why you're together.
Yes,
just go back to that.
It's not all about the wedding. No. So that's really important. And enjoy it. That's the other one, wasn't it? That's a really important one.
Have to, yes.
Have to enjoy it.
If you're not enjoying it, you need to go back and look at why you're not enjoying it.
I think that's really important, and see where that stems from. I'll talk about that in another episode, because we'll have an episode on reducing stress and being nice and calm, and another episode on dealing with difficulties or conflicts. So that's all still to come. I know Fred knows a lot, so she could cover everything. We could have a 3-hour podcast and nail it, but we've got to save some for another episode. So one more thing we're going to ask Fred to do. Fred obviously has been married 9 years. She had a wonderful time. She's still happily married, which is wonderful.
I am.
She's also been a guest at weddings, and obviously she's a wedding supplier. So if someone said to you, what's the one thing you'd wish somebody had told you before you got married or started in the industry, either or, what would you say?
If I'm going by, if somebody asked me if I was wedding planning, what if somebody told me, it would be, and it's not because you're sat here. I'm being perfectly genuine here. It's pick the right photographer.
Yes, well done.
And it's so true, because I did the silly thing of letting a friend be the photographer. Although 3 weeks prior to the wedding, he had all his equipment stolen, and he wasn't insured. So I had to find a last minute photographer. And that was really stressful, because I'd had ideas in my head about what type of photography we wanted. But because we had to go with who was available, he was lovely, really, really lovely. But they weren't the photographs that we wanted. So I cannot stress enough. If you want memories of your big day and you do want photographs, take the time to pick the right photographer.
Yes.
That would be because everything else was a breeze. That was the most stressful thing. So in all honesty, that was,
Brilliant. I'm going to slide a £20 note under the table to Fred for saying that answer.
But it's very true. I mean,
No, it is. It is. And it's nice when other people say it, because obviously when I say it, sometimes it sounds a bit salesy or a bit like, promote self-promotion.
True.
But it is true. It's the one thing you're left with. So brilliant. Thank you so much, Fred.
Thank you for having me.
Inspiration and ideas, and you've been wonderful company.
It's been very enjoyable.
Tell everyone how they can get in touch and view your wonderful work.
You can get in touch by going to the website, which is yoursoccasionally, all one word, .co.uk, or you can email me at info@yoursoccasionally.co.uk. I would strongly advise that you follow me on Instagram, because I have a lot of fun over there. So that's at Yours Occasionally on Instagram, and also come to my Facebook page and say hello, which again, search Yours Occasionally.
Fantastic stuff. So I am Ross Willsher. You can view my work at www.rosswillsherphotography.co.uk. The book, How to Have a Wedding as Individual as You Are, is available online on Amazon, Barnes & Noble and Waterstones online. Or if you'd like a signed copy, or you'd like to chat to me about any of the issues we've talked to today. That sounds a bit serious. It sounds like the end of like a really harrowing Hollyoaks episode, doesn't it? Yeah. If you'd like to get in touch with anything wedding related or podcast related, you can email info@rosswillsherphotography.co.uk. So we'll be back very soon with another episode and lots of tips and ideas. Thank you once again, Fred.
Thank you for having me. It's been brilliant.
And happy wedding planning.